I want to hear cannons. Downfield, pull up, ball to the 5, touchdown Tampa Bay. My Evans does it again. Fire the cannons, Bucs.
It's first and goal. That's picked off. That's picked off. And who else? Rondé Barber. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers may ride to the Super Bowl with that one.
Third down, 18. Dropping Gannon, looking Gannon. Those up with the head. Intercepted. 30. Derek Brooks 30. Brooks to the 25, 20. Derek Brooks all the way. There it is. The dagger's in. We're going to win the Super Bowl. And then the cannons come. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast live on YouTube. I'm your host, as always, Rhett Matthew, joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host from BucsNation.com, Evan Wanish. And today, we are diving into the Buccaneers Week 1 matchup with the visiting Washington Commanders. It is our first game preview show of the regular season for Tampa Bay. We are very excited. Joining us today to break down the Commanders side of things, ladies and gentlemen, former wide receiver in the NFL and host of the Bleav in Commanders podcast, Anthony Armstrong, joins the Cannon Fire Podcast. Anthony, pleasure to have you. How you doing today?
What is up? I am good, man. I am good. Glad to join y'all. Appreciate you having me. And I was thinking just yesterday, I was talking to a friend about my one time down in Tampa, and we went out in Ybor City. And it was a good time. I do not remember the club, but I do know I enjoyed myself in Tampa. But I'm glad to join y'all.
Always a pleasure. We're happy to have you. A lot of things going on down here in the city, as you know, seemingly getting bigger every single year. But we are here to talk about this Sunday's matchup between two up-and-coming teams in the NFL. A couple of teams who feel that they have improved very much between 2023 and the start of the 2024 season. And, diving right into what Washington brings to the table, I think what's on the forefront of a lot of Bucs fans' minds is this rookie quarterback. He is a Heisman Trophy winner. Jayden Daniels out of LSU, incredibly talented quarterback. And listen, when you look at the Buccaneers' track record, especially against rookie quarterbacks, but on top of that, guys who were mobile in the pocket, great at adjusting and making plays after the play is broken down, Jayden Daniels here seems like he has the skill set to potentially give this Buccaneers defense a rough afternoon. What are your thoughts on the rookie headed into his first start here?
Man, I'm excited for this kid. I've spoken to so many people from Bleav Network, folks at LSU, just people who've been following him for the longest, and everybody says he's just so cool, so calm and collected. Just saw a clip earlier that Terry McLaurin used those same words, but he also said you could tell he got a little something to him. Right, he's got some dog in him that will come out. And I figured, hey, if you're playing in Death Valley in front of 102,000 people, getting into the NFL and playing in those stadiums probably aren't going to, rattle you that much. And just to see how he's operated this preseason, so calm, easily working his way through the offenses, it just leaves me wanting to see more. And, week 1, everybody unleashes what their real playbook is looking like. Everything we've seen so far from Washington has been pretty bland. And I know Todd Bowles is going to have something special too. So the way Jayden prepares, you have to feel like he would be prepared for whatever's going to come up from Todd Bowles and the rest of that defense. But let's not be too light with Tampa Bay. Hellified players over there: Levante David, Jamel Dean, Antoine Winfield. Vita Vea in the middle, Elijah Clancy. You got a lot of players over there, so it's not going to be an easy test for Jayden. But I think he's going to handle it well, just because he's been in so many situations, played a lot of football.
Yeah, and just like you said about, him winning a Heisman Trophy, I mean, that's not an easy thing to do, right? Being the second overall pick. He was a second overall pick for a reason. And, he's the guy that the Commanders are hoping turns their franchise around. I mean, it's been a long time, since I think that since Washington has had a player like this, right? A player this exciting, especially at the quarterback position. So they're going to want to get off on the right foot. And obviously you got a brand new head coach, brand new play caller there with Dan Quinn and then Cliff Kingsbury. So they're going to want to come out, with some fireworks, right? With some real excitement. So there's a lot of optimism, I'm sure, in that building for sort of this brand new era. So they want to get off on the right foot. And on the other side, so the Buccaneers, they want to start the season 1-0 as well, especially, with the schedule that the Bucs have. They have a lot of tough opponents. So, that they want to get off to a quick start. So this will be an interesting game on Sunday.
What are your expectations for how Washington is going to game plan their offense, specifically to cater to a rookie quarterback in his first NFL start? You know he's going to be facing a lot of different defensive fronts against Todd Bowles. I kind of made the joke earlier this week that after 4 quarters against Tampa, there may not be a defensive front for the rest of the year that he hasn't seen, just because we know how often Todd Bowles is disguising these looks, disguising the blitz. I have to imagine in this first half, he might send the house. You know, Bowles is a guy that lives and dies by the blitz, but, you know, he's true to the game. And I think to welcome a rookie quarterback to the NFL, they're going to try and blitz early and often in this one. But, you know, with Washington, you look at some of the weaknesses in a Todd Bowles defense, maybe getting the ball out quickly, spreading the defense out. Is there anything in particular you think they're really going to try and incorporate this week to make the transition a little bit easier for Jayden Daniels?
Yeah, it's great that you said that, Rhett, because I do think 100% you have to get the ball out quickly, and a lot of it's going to fall on Cliff Kingsbury and his play calling. Getting the ball out quickly into the hands of running backs like Robinson Jr., Austin Eckler, hell, Terry McLaurin's over there. That's going to be number one to help slow down that blitz. And the big thing about when you go against the blitz, you have to make them pay for it. Like, it can't be an incompletion, can't be, oh, I just threw it away, avoided a sack. You got to get a big play. And Jayden Daniels has that mentality to say, I'm going to throw a touchdown on this play. He said that in that interview with Brian Daboll. Folks tried to rip him down and say he's a bad quarterback for it. But in all preseason, he's taken those shots deep. So how he handles the blitz can really determine what Todd is going to be able to do on defense. But I expect to see blitzes, especially for the fact that the offensive line for Washington is still a little shaky. All right, still a little shaky. I mean, you made a big acquisition with Tyler Biadasz coming from Dallas, Nick Allegretti coming from the Chiefs. You still got Andrew Wiley over there from the Chiefs, so you got to see if he's going to settle down this year. But on that left tackle spot, it could be Brandon Coleman, rookie out of TCU, or it could be Cornelius Lucas. Those are the two guys, and you'll find out this week who's actually going to start. Now, if you watched that Chiefs game yesterday, when Rosengarten got into right tackle for the Ravens, Chris Jones was waving his hand. He was like, nope, I'm going over there against that rookie. And you can see that exact same thing happen this upcoming game against Brandon Coleman or Lucas. They're going to test that side. You got to see if you can handle the blitz. And if Washington can handle it, then I think the game is a little more smooth sailing. But if not, man, it can get long for the Commanders.
Yeah, the Buccaneers dealing with a little bit of injuries along that defensive line. Todd Bowles said today that defensive lineman Logan Hall is the only Bucs player who will be missing this week's game. So you are a little thin. They do sign an extra defensive lineman there. But, you know, we've talked a lot here in the preseason about the Buccaneers defensive line and our concerns with the pass rush in particular. We can talk a little bit about how you think Washington improved coming into this one. But first, you know, in this matchup, what are maybe some of the weak spots on the roster that you're going to be concerned about, you know, week one and beyond for the way Washington is set up this year?
And it's the same two. There's two big spots, and then the second is just overall. But number one, we just mentioned it, the offensive line, having injuries in that preseason, not being able to get everybody out there. We don't know what 5 you're going to really see. And has that 5 even gotten to work together this preseason? Probably not. So it's going to be a learn on the go type of a thing. I already mentioned, hey, play calling can help with that, getting the ball out quickly, running the ball, having some success running the ball. That's going to help take some pressure off that offensive line, and how that goes throughout the year can determine how high this team is going to be. Are they going to be sneaking into the playoffs in that 7th seed, 6th seed, or not? If they give up 60-something sacks like they did last year, Rhett, they're going to be at the crib like us, okay? They're going to get 17 games of football, and then they're going to go ahead and go home. But outside of that, you got to protect your quarterback to be able to get some W's. The other position is that secondary. I don't know what's going on with the secondary, specifically cornerback, and this is a game that's it doesn't set up well, right? Mike Evans is a GOAT. I mean, he's been doing it for 10 years. I remember I had a write-up on Mike Evans a long time ago, Evan, when he was coming out. I said, he plays like a power forward out there at wide receiver. He's big, he's physical, and he's going to bully you to the football, and that's all he's done his entire career. Going against St. Juice and Emmanuel Forbes, that's a little bit of mismatch. You got to give the edge to Mike Evans. Chris Godwin as well, talented receiver. Got to give him the edge just over these young DBs. But with a Dan Quinn defense, Joe Witt defense, it's about all 11. It's about that pass rush, putting pressure on Baker Mayfield, making the ball come out quicker, maybe getting a couple of tips. I mean, he is a shorter quarterback, so maybe you get your hands up and you create plays as an overall unit. But the way it's sitting right now, you don't have that player that's like, hey, you're going to take take care of one player for the whole game, and we'll do the rest. The defense as a unit has to come together. But bringing in Bobby Wagner, I think that's the biggest key. He should be able to rally the troops and make that defense operate in one solid unit.
Yeah, you definitely get some veteran presence in there throughout the offseason. Some stats about Mike Evans versus Washington here. In 5 career games, Mike Evans has 26 catches, 605 yards, 121 receiving yards per game on average, 4 touchdowns, 23.5 yards per reception, and 24 first downs. He is also on a little bit of a hot streak, catching week 1 touchdowns. I picked that up on this week's episode of Betting the Bucs. Evan, your thoughts on this matchup, the Buccaneers offense, and any other concerns or questions you might have for Anthony here?
Yeah, obviously, when we're looking at this Commanders defense, it was not good last year. It was not good at all last year. They ranked 32nd in yards allowed per game, 388.9. Also ranked 32nd points per game with 30.5. Dan Quinn, coming from the Dallas Cowboys, now with the Washington Commanders, obviously his Dallas defense fared much, much better. They were 5th in yards per game with 299.7, and also 5th in points per game, which is 18.5. So a much bigger difference there. You have Dan Quinn. You also have, just like you mentioned, Bobby Wagner, and a guy who I even think might be even bigger additions, Frankie Louvu, coming over from the Carolina Panthers. I really like this player. Had a really nice year a couple of seasons ago, at 12.5 sacks in the last 2 seasons combined with the Panthers. So watch out for Frankie Louvu as well. They added Michael Davis, corner from the Chargers. He's the guy, 6'2". Benjamin St. Juste is 6'3". Emmanuel Forbes 6', 180. Don't know if you're going to see Emmanuel Forbes on Mike Evans too much. That seems like a nightmare waiting to happen for Washington. Hope
not.
So I would guess you're going to see Davis or St. Juste, in that spot against Mike Evans. But that's something that I do think, just like Anthony mentioned, that I think the Bucs could take advantage of. When you look at it, I look at Washington's front 7, and I see that as a strength. Their secondary, on the other hand, I see as a potential that if, just like Anthony mentioned, if they can keep Baker Mayfield upright, if guys like Jonathan Allen, Darren Payne, if those guys don't go off against, a interior Bucs offensive line, which was not really a strength for the Bucs last year. If Baker Mayfield can get some time, I do think they could be able to find guys like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, maybe even like a Jalen McMillan, who's the rookie, really impressed this past training camp. But I think it's going to start up front on both sides of the ball, on offense and defense for the Bucs, protecting Baker Mayfield, and also, just like we talked about, getting pressure on that rookie quarterback.
Let me ask y'all this, though. If you talk about it, it's happening up front. If you had to slide the chips to one side to who has the favor, are you taking Graham Barton, Cody Mauch, and the rest of your interior versus Deron Payne, John Allen, or you got to give the tip to the Commanders on the defensive line versus the Bucs offense?
I would say, as far as interior, I think you got to give that edge to the Commanders. Jonathan Allen, Darren Payne, they're really good. They're really good players. Those guys have made Pro Bowls. Those guys have had a heck of a career so far. And look, the Bucs interior offensive line, Graham Barton's a rookie. He's a talented player, but he's a rookie. This is going to be his first action. Cody Mauch is a second-year player. Then he got Ben Bredeson, who was a veteran on a Giants team that the Bucs just signed to a 1-year deal. So there's a lot of uncertainty with the interior of the offensive line for the Bucs. Could it be good? It could. It has the potential. Graham Barton has the potential to be one of the better centers in the NFL for a long time. But is that going to happen right away? That's where I don't know, and that's where I think Washington is going to actually have their focus, is right up the middle of the Bucs offense. Try and clog the middle lanes there, and try and get pressure from up the middle. Maybe not so much on the edges, because the Bucs tackles are really good. Obviously, Tristan Wirfs is Tristan Wirfs. Luke Gedeke played really well last year, but in the middle there, I think, is where the Commanders could create a lot of issues for the Buccaneers on offense.
Yeah, those guys are they're green. Cody Mauch, again, you mentioned he's a second-year player. We needed to see a little bit more consistency from him. Had a good rookie year, but you're looking forward to him to hit an NFL weight room for the first time, or at least a full offseason program. Graham Barton, he's a rookie offensive lineman in the NFL. He had a really good preseason, and we're very excited about this, hopefully, fingers crossed, new and improved Buccaneers running game, but he needs those snaps. He needs that repetition. He needs to play a couple of Pro Bowl caliber defensive tackles that, can knock him on his ass once or twice, just to get him just to get him up to speed with the game. And then, of course, Ben Bredesen, I think, depth, a depth piece at that point. Kind of was competing with Sua Opeta for that left guard job. Opeta goes down for the year. The Buccaneers lose him. I Bleav it was an ACL tear.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, brutal injury for him. So, you hope to see those guys do well, but I think Washington, that interior defensive line in particular, is a really good starting point for where you hopefully want these guys to physically be able to be, especially when you're playing meaningful football down the stretch in December and hopefully into January. Just build that consistency and get back up to game speed is what I'm looking forward to. But it's going to be a real test for the interior of the Bucs O-line here.
It is.
Yeah, and also the thing is, like, and also, I mean, like I mentioned, Bobby Wagner, Frankie Luvu, those guys are gonna be also clogging up that middle. Like when Dan Quinn, when he decided to send a blitz, or Bobby Wagner was actually really good last year. I think he had sort of a down year with the Rams the year before, bounced back pretty nicely in his return to Seattle, and then lands in Washington. So I mean, he's still a heck of a player, even at 34 years old. I mean, he's still a good football player, and I don't think I think this is going to come down to, can the Buccaneers protect Baker Mayfield well enough? Can the Buccaneers run the football well enough as well? I think that's a big key as well, and it's something that we know the Bucs are going to try and do as well. So if we know it, I'm sure Dan Quinn knows it as well, and they're going to try and be as prepared for that as possible.
They definitely will. I mean, I think that both teams have to say we have to establish the run. I know personally, I don't want Jayden Daniels to have to throw the ball 45 times in this matchup. And I'm sure that you don't want Baker to have to do that as well. As good as he played last year. I mean, he played great, deserved the contract and bounced back with how his career had been going. But something about being able to get that running game rocking. I'm a little interested to see, how do you handle Vita Vea other than saying I'm gonna just run the other way, because I feel like that guy is so big that he'd be able to. He's gonna draw too. Like, he's gonna take up a lot of attention inside. May not be a lot of interior running, but the efficiency of the running is what I'm looking for. It's not necessarily we got to run for 150 yards a game. It's saying, hey, we can get 3, 4, 5 yards and shorten the decision making. You talk about taking away the blitz, getting to some good down and distances where Todd Bowles is like, I can't roll the dice like this. It's not a long third down. Let me rush him to get the ball out of his hands. 3rd and 1, that's a different mentality than 3rd and 11. Yeah. Right? You can win ball games and move the chains if you're on 3rd and 11, and having some efficient run game. I think that's going to help. It could help both teams, but I need Washington to be able to have a little bit better running game. I do have Rachaad White on a fantasy football team. I do not have him playing this week just because I think the defensive line for Washington is going to be too solid to slow him down. It's going to slow him down.
Yeah, I think both teams going to be looking for a big day from the run game this Sunday. The Bucs, one of the things that came along with new offensive coordinator Liam Cohen was all this talk about how he is going to fix this philosophy in the Buccaneers run game, because I don't know if you've seen it, but the Bucs have been historically bad at running the football these last couple of seasons. I like Rachaad White a lot as a running back. The Bucs like him. They like his development. I think he is turning more and more into a do-it-all kind of guy, and hopefully the addition of Bucky Irving is going to go a long way for him. But again, he hasn't had an interior offensive line to just move the people around and open those run lanes. And, honestly, the Bucs play calling in the run philosophy these last couple of years has just been garbage. It's just not been good, hasn't been consistent, and the situational play calling isn't there. So, for a long time, the Bucs were the kind of team where you're running the football, but it didn't feel like you were doing anything meaningful with it. I remember Peyton Barber, Jaquiz Rogers kind of being your featured back for a little while here, and it would be 25 carries with 58 yards at the end of the day. Like, they weren't doing anything meaningful. It's hard to dictate the pace of the football game. But when you look ahead to Washington here this week and the importance of that run game, you want to set it up and make it easier for that rookie quarterback, But you got a lot of playmakers here. Out of the running back room, Brian Robinson Jr., Austin Eckler just picked him up in the offseason. Buccaneers legend Jeremy McNichols. I don't think many people know that. When you look at this roster and who's rolling into this game, do you think it's just going to be one kind of guy who has a big day against Tampa? Like, is it a 100-plus yard day for Scary Terry, or is there anyone else on this offense for Washington you think could kind of take over and be someone who carries the offense a little bit? Because I have to imagine the Bucs are going to have some sort of game plan for Terry McLaurin, but there's still some talent left on that offensive side of the ball for sure.
There is talent on there, a lot of depth across the board. I mean, Zach Ertz is somebody that's gonna, see a lot of targets. He didn't play this preseason, but they're wide receiver 2 position. You trade away Jahan Dotson, he goes to Philly. Now it's listed as Olamide Zaccheaus as the 2 at the Z receiver, and then you have rookie receiver out of Rice, Luke McCaffrey. He is at the slot. Now, De'Ami Brown has flashed in this preseason. He started some games, he hit some deep passes, and I think that wide receiver 2 spot is going to be just by committee, right? Whoever has a better matchup, whoever is getting off the press, who's ever able to take advantage of their opportunities is going to be able to play over there. I do know for sure there's going to be a safety over the top of Terry McLaurin. There's going to be a safety over the top of Terry McLaurin until somebody else makes the team change their mind. I do think that this is going to be a big year for Terry. I need him to have 1,300 yards. I need him to have 10 plus touchdowns, but it's going to help to take some pressure off of it, knowing that you can throw the ball to another wideout who's gonna have a good game. Who is it gonna be? I have no clue. I have no clue because Luke McCaffrey is so young at the position. He's still learning receiver, but he's slated as a starting slot guy. So with the unknown that Washington has from the play calling, from how the offense is going to roll out, that's how I just don't know what you're going to get. That's the thing. I heard Dan Quinn in one of his press conferences mention, somebody asked about Liam Cohen's how he's unknown with what Tampa's been doing. And Dan's like, hey, we'll have to go back and look at some tape from where he's been in previous stops. He says, but our defense going against our offense has been able to benefit from seeing a lot of shifts and motions and things of that nature. Haven't seen that in the preseason games yet. So you understand all the good recipes are waiting for the regular season. That preseason stuff was vanilla and chocolate and strawberry and boring. Now you're getting rocky road, you're getting caramel, you're getting sprinkles that are going to be sprinkled out during this season. So that's where I'm interested to see where it goes. That's how you're going to unveil who's going to be your number 2 guy.
It's always tough when you're chomping at the bit to see a new offensive system, and you just have to wait and see. Like we talk so much throughout the preseason about how, these play calls are vanilla. They're not going to be showing NFL teams much of anything at all that they plan to do in the regular season. So you just have to wait and see, and sometimes it gets hard when it turns into a guessing game of like, I don't know what we're going to see. They've talked about this. They've showed us this, but, when push comes to shove, week 1 against Washington, we'll see what these guys are capable of, both of the offensive play callers in this one. Evan, any last thoughts here for Anthony before we get into the game picks?
Yeah, obviously, just overall, what were your expectations for Jayden Daniels this season? Not just in this game, for this season. Rookie QBs, we've seen the guys like Zach Wilson come in and struggle, or Trey Lance come in and struggle, but we've also seen CJ Stroud, light up the NFL, lit up the Buccaneers last year in a heartbreaker for the Bucs, took the Texans to the playoffs. Now they're thinking that the Texans could be a Super Bowl contender. What are your expectations? And maybe you don't think that, maybe you don't think it's going to be one or the other. What are your expectations for Daniels in his first season at the helm?
I think with Jayden Daniels, you're going to get more of a CJ Stroud type season. Maybe not the playoffs because it takes a whole team to do that. They're a few pieces away, but I do think you're going to see a much improved Washington team. I think he can hit the over on the touchdown passes and the rushing touchdowns that are on Bet Online at like 17.5 passing touchdowns, 4.5 rushing touchdowns. I'm taking the over. 3,100 passing yards. I'm taking the over. I just saw a tweet earlier. The man has written down all of CJ Stroud's records in his phone. I'm taking the over. I think he's going to have an awesome season. It's a quiet confidence that's going on in Ashburn. Nobody's saying he's the savior yet. He's saving the franchise, but I think they feel it deep down inside. So I'm excited to see how he's going to play. I think he's going to show up big in big moments. If you talk about another rookie quarterback, Caleb Williams, Caleb will probably have more highlights. He'll have more flashy plays like no look, dink and dunk type things that he's going to do. Jayden is going to be surgical and precise. He's going to probably have more fourth quarter comebacks type of a season. I think that's where Jayden's going to be great. Minute 17 left in this game against the Buccaneers. He needs to drive down, score a touchdown. That's the type of Jayden Daniels I want to see. I think he's going to be a game-winning quarterback in the fourth quarter.
Going to be an interesting matchup this week. Let me know how you think the game is going to shake out here, Anthony, before we let you go. Bucs, Commanders, again, a couple of young teams looking to get better. They both feel like they've gotten better from where they were just a year ago, and both teams looking to surpass some expectations. But rookie quarterback making his first start here, a lot to be excited about with the roster in Washington. Anthony, your prediction for week 1?
Man, it's going to be a close battle. I think it's a 3-point game, but I think Washington can cover, but I think they can win. 27-24. Give me the Commanders over the Bucs.
All right. We are going to let you go, my friend. I know you got a heart out. We appreciate your time. Let the people know where they can find you and your great content. Great talking ball with you today.
Yeah, appreciate y'all having me. Check me out at Rated Armstrong on X. You can give me a follow there. And then at Bleav Commanders, that's the podcast for the show. So check us out. I even got a Philly fan that follows us and listens to the podcast. So everybody's welcome. Come on, Bucs fans. Come on. Mike Allstott. Love Mike Allstott.
No, I'm pointing at the Philly fan over there. I don't know if Evan said anything about it. He's up in Philly. For the longest time, we called him the Philly Bucs fan. He is massively hated up there. Every time he talks about Rondé Barber and Veteran Stadium, they get all bent out of shape.
Anytime you mention that,
Yeah, you got to be careful up there in Philly. Philly is a tough area, right? That is like they talk about you can't play a game in Brazil, you can't wear green. You can't walk on the field in Philly without your helmet on because they throw batteries and stuff. So that's just the type of thing you got to deal with. But I do appreciate y'all hanging out with me and allowing me to come on the show with y'all.
Absolutely. We
Thanks a lot,
appreciate your
Andy.
time. We'll talk to you soon. Should be a great game. Good luck.
Yes, sir. Good luck to y'all.
Anthony Armstrong, the host of Bleav in Commanders, once again here on the Cannon Fire Podcast. Thank you to Anthony, everybody for hanging out. We're going to get to the second half of the show here in just a minute, but Evan, it is the perfect time for me to remind you that being a fan is a full-time job. And today's show is brought to you by our good friends at Autograph, which just officially launched out of beta this week. It is now available on the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. This app curates the best content, tickets, and gear to help you fan to your full potential. Evan, just like I said, we all know that being a fan is a full-time job, so Autograph does the heavy lifting for you. From tickets for big matchups to breaking news, the Autograph app is curated content for fans of all things Bucs. All the podcasts, articles, and game predictions you could ever want, including your friends here at the Cannon Fire Podcast. The new replay feature lets you get the day's news without the noise for when you need the TLDR to start your day. Use promo code BUCS to download for free on Google Play or the Apple App Store today. Once again, promo code BUCS, BUCS, on the Autograph app today. You can use that big QR code on the screen right now as well. Thank you once again to our good friends at Autograph for sponsoring the show. Evan, we didn't get into our game picks, but we got a couple more points to make. And, you know, a wise man once told me you always want to leave the people wanting more, right?
Yeah, I guess so. And look, it's so obviously after talking, with Anthony there, there's two things that stood out to me. One was the weaknesses that he said. The weaknesses that he said play into the Buccaneers' favor a good bit. The offensive line and the secondary, right? So the offensive line, I think, plays into the Buccaneers' favor because I think the Buccaneers' interior defensive line, more specifically Vita Vea, Kalijah Kancey, they're going to be able to do a lot of work, right, with against a rookie quarterback, against the guy who is mobile. Now, you need to watch out, and I'll get into that in a second. But we look at this pass rush, and I think it's one of, if not the weakest part of the team. It's good that they're not playing an elite offensive line this week, right? They might be able to generate some pressure, maybe build up some confidence for themselves, building, the rest of the season. So that's good. It sounds like, Yaya Diaby is good to go. Like, it sounds like he is 100% good to go. There's going to be no issue there. So he's going to play. Like you said, I Bleav, the only defensive lineman, only player that's out is Logan Hall. So the Bucs are a pretty healthy football team right now. And the other thing is obviously a secondary. Like I mentioned, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin there. And if you look at who the Commanders have at corner, who they have at safety, they added Jeremy Chin, but like I mentioned, Michael Davis, Benjamin St-Juste, Emmanuel Forbes, none of those guys really strike fear in your eyes. And I don't know how they're going to be able to come up with an answer for a guy like Mike Evans. St-Juste is their biggest corner at 6'3", 202, and Mike Evans is 6'5", 231. So Mike Evans has 2 inches and basically 30 pounds on their biggest corner. So there's going to be an advantage there, and that, I think, plays into the Buccaneers' favor a lot. One other point that I wanted to touch on that he made was about the weapons and stuff. When you're saying a wide receiver 2 by committee, that to me means you don't have a wide receiver 2. Like,
right,
you just,
yeah.
It's going to be Luke McCaffrey, which is actually Christian McCaffrey's brother, or Zacchaeus. I mean, come on, like, that's the wide receiver 2. I would expect the Commanders to really focus on Zach Ertz, especially, Jayden Daniels.
Yeah.
Look, tight end's going to be a rookie QB's best friend, especially on third downs. I would keep an eye on Zach Ertz. I think Zach Ertz could have a big day, could have a lot of catches for the Commanders.
It's crazy too, because the Bucs and especially a Todd Bowles defense, they've always had this uncanny ability to allow the slowest guy on the field to be the most open. And I think Zach Ertz could just be a recent example of that after Sunday. Some way, somehow, they've got a couple of good playmakers. Again, cannot sleep on the potential that Terry McLaurin has as a wide receiver in the NFL. He's been doing it for a long time. He's a very talented guy, but if he's not there, I feel like we're going to see Zach Ertz pick up 10, 15 yards consistently throughout this one if that's the way it ends up shaking out.
Yeah, and then obviously, they have Terry McLaurin there. He has 1,000 yards 4 years in a row. So, but yeah, Jahan Dotson was traded, and it's kind of like, I mean, I mentioned Zach Ertz, but like Terry McLaurin's the only guy who like really scares me. Like I think the Bucs have to have an answer for that, and it's they're probably going to end up having Jamel Dean there. But I think again that's another thing that favors the Bucs. That who's the Commanders' wide receiver too? Okay, Zion McCollum isn't going to be going up against some really, really good player. He can get his feet wet here, right? In his first role, in his first action in a new role here. I think that benefits the Buccaneers as well on defense. So I don't know. I think the Buccaneers actually have to worry about Jayden Daniels' legs more than anything. He had combined over those last 2 seasons at LSU, he had 2,019 rushing yards combined and 21 total rushing touchdowns. He's a quarterback. like that's insane. And he is really fast. And I understand it's college and the pros are a different beast. And these guys are much faster than what he faced in college. I get it. But that dude is still freaking fast. And the Bucs are going to have an answer for that. On a 3rd and 12, you think he got everybody bottled up. You can't let him scramble for 14 because he will.
Right.
And they need to find an answer for that.
Well, it's about making the play when the play is there to be made. Let's face it, not every facet of this team is going to be where it should be in week 1. I don't think any NFL team is where they want to be come week 1. So the defensive line, the linebacker unit, the secondary for Tampa Bay from top to bottom, it is a work in progress, but these guys step up and they do their jobs and they play disciplined football. Let's face it, I think the Bucs have the tools to give Jayden Daniels one hell of an afternoon. I just think if they're not on their P's and Q's, which they may not be because it is week 1, there's going to be a couple of instances where, just like you said, I don't think so much throwing over the top. I don't think he is going to, CJ Stroud us by any means in this game, but he does have an ability to extend plays out of the pocket using his legs, and the Bucs have an ability to send a blitz that doesn't always get home and results in a 20 to 30 yard chunk gain. So if you can avoid those plays and you can make the play when it's there to make it, then you can shut this guy down all day and you can win by 10 points. You can win by double digits. It's all about Joe Tryon-Shoyinka or a guy similar getting into the backfield and wrapping up the quarterback, right? Not just putting an arm or two on the guy, finishing the play and making sure it doesn't continue. Jayden Daniels is quick. If he can get out of that situation and he can prove to be a guy who can avoid pressure from the blitz throughout the game, he's just going to do it over and over and over again. And yes, I do expect the Bucs to blitz a lot headed into this game, especially the first half, just because of our faith in this defensive front. Like I know the Bucs, honestly, and maybe I want to get your thoughts on this as well, but the Bucs have pretty much been loud and clear about the fact that they believe in what they have along this defensive line. But I don't think this defensive line is going to be good enough week 1 to slow down Jayden Daniels without a little bit of help from the blitz. And that is, a couple of new guys in the linebacker room. And then again, you're counting on some guys in the secondary to step up and make plays. This is a rookie quarterback we're talking about. So I think we are going to see a couple of mistakes. I do think the Bucs are going to blitz his ass off, and they are going to coax him into making some mistakes. I'm hoping that between Jordan Whitehead and Antoine Winfield Jr., we could see a takeaway this week from the Buccaneers defense. But, what are your thoughts on this matchup here when you look at what the Bucs are headed into this, the kind of firepower that they have, and then ultimately how they plan to use it? What are your thoughts on the defensive approach? Because, again, I think it's going to be I think they're going to send the house in the first half.
It's interesting. I do think they might do that in the first half, just see how it goes, kind of, and then make the adjustment from there. If Daniels burns them on a couple of times, like I said, I think that's where a guy like Zach Ertz might be useful for them
Right.
against that blitz to get the ball out quick. I don't think they want Daniels holding the ball very long, especially with, you know, especially with, just like Anthony said, the offensive line being a little shaky, right? Actually, I saw something today where the Commanders are actually, he had mentioned the two tackles. The Commanders are planning to, I think, rotate them during the game.
Yeah.
Like, actually, I don't know how that's gonna work. So,
So you
um,
got Coleman coming off of injury. I guess his status was up in the air. And then if he's not going to be able to go, or if he's not 100% healthy, then yeah, you had talked about potentially rotating with Cornelius Lucas. An interesting approach. I don't know. If that hurts or helps the Buccaneers pass rush when you have, if everything goes according to plan for Washington, if they have a consistently fresh left tackle, how do you think that fares?
yeah, I mean, it's going to be hot, obviously, 425 in Tampa, so keeping them guys fresh would be for sure. That being said, I also don't like offensive linemen, they need to get into a rhythm too, though. So, like, I mean, I don't really know how that's going to go for them. But speaking of getting into a rhythm, that is what the Buccaneers cannot let Jayden Daniels do. Because rookie QBs don't know what they don't know. It's a good thing, but it's a bad thing. There's pros and cons of playing a rookie quarterback. When they're playing without confidence and you shut them down, they look like the Panthers and Bryce Young last year. When they're playing with confidence and you give them that sliver of hope, they look like CJ Stroud last year. That's the difference. So the Buccaneers, I think, early, right? You cannot start this game slow. You have to, specifically on defense, you cannot start this game slow. You have to put the pressure on Jayden Daniels. Now, again, I said, in the first half, I think they would blitz a lot. The tough thing, if you're blitzing from the middle, right, which is probably what the Buccaneers would do a lot of the time, and Todd Bowles gets creative with his blitzes, we all know that. But if you're blitzing from the middle, Jayden Daniels has so much speed that you're going to need your edge defenders, though, to really keep their edge.
Yeah.
Because if he gets around that, it could be just a bunch of green grass. And especially when you're blitzing, you're most likely playing some sort of man coverage. The defender's backs are going to be turned towards the quarterback. And yeah, Daniels could run for 20, 30 yards if you're not careful. So obviously, yeah, you want to confuse him with the blitz. He hasn't seen this stuff before. Yes, you can watch all the film from last year on the Todd Bowles defense that you want. It's different than actually facing it, and it's not the same thing. So that's the biggest storyline of this entire weekend for the Buccaneers, right? For the Buccaneers, the biggest storyline is the other dude on the other side on the other team, right? It's the rookie quarterback, the second overall pick. So he's a dangerous weapon, though, and I don't think the Buccaneers can underestimate him. I don't think the Buccaneers are underestimating him, but I do think, yeah, they gotta be careful. I think is how I would say it, because if they aren't, he's dangerous enough to where he doesn't have to just hurt you with his arm. He can hurt you in multiple ways, and that can lead to a lot of bad things on defense.
Yeah, and let's acknowledge what a lot of people are saying too about Jayden Daniels. I mean, let's face it, this is a rookie quarterback, his first start in the NFL on the road against a defensive unit that might not be the best in the NFL, but it's a defense that has been around for a little while. They respect their coach. They like playing for him. And honestly, Todd Bowles, as far as a defensive coordinator goes, he's
Fantastic,
one of the most creative minds in the NFL. Like, there is going to be a lot of new things for Jayden Daniels. So this is an uphill battle for him. Don't get me wrong. I don't want people to think that we're coming on here and saying that Jayden Daniels is going to give the Bucs a fit without a shadow of a doubt. I think the Bucs are a better team. I think the defense is ultimately going to, give him a welcome to the NFL moment. Maybe he makes a couple of plays. That's what Washington wants him to do.
There's going to be a time where he makes at least once during this game. It's going to be like, 3rd and 12, you almost have him, and he makes a play. Like, that's what's going to happen. But it's all about limiting those.
Yeah, well, be honest about the expectations for Jayden Daniels as well. Like, a lot of people expect this kid to be the best quarterback from this year's draft. A lot of people pick him to be better than Caleb Williams, any other rookie starting quarterback. He's a Heisman Trophy winner, but he has the tools and the skill set to give the Buccaneers problems based off of their recent track record, not even with just rookie quarterbacks, but with these shifty mobile quarterbacks, the guys who can adjust and make plays after after, make plays out of the pocket after things break down. You remember that first round matchup with Washington with Taylor Heineke. You remember all the fits that Taylor Heineke gave the Bucs? And that was literally from him just extending plays and keeping his team alive, which I definitely think Jayden Daniels has the skill set to do if needed.
And Jayden Daniels is going to be turned up to 11 in terms of being able to escape plays that Taylor Heineke did. So,
Right.
It's so much more athleticism, so much more speed, so much more talent, just raw talent. I mean, this is a talented quarterback right here. This is a talented young quarterback, and he's also fearless, So, I mean, we talk about a lot about him running or whatever, but look, he's gonna try and fit that ball in there as well. So the Bucs secondary is gonna have to be good. Again, like we talked about, basically, I think it's Zach Ertz and Terry McLaurin. You can't let either one of those guys single-handedly beat you. You gotta find a way to basically take away. If you take away McLaurin, okay, like I think your chances of winning go up much, much higher because I think Zach Ertz can only do so much. I think you can only have so much from the tight end spot there, especially with, like you said, I think the Bucs are the better team at the end of the day. But again, with a rookie quarterback week one, the inexperience will play a factor, but also like I said, if he gets confident, right? Let's say they go down the field, first down here, first down there, first down there. Let's say it doesn't even end in 7. Let's say it ends in 3, maybe. That's building that confidence. Then he goes back out. He has another opportunity. That's what you don't want, right? You don't want them to have that sliver of confidence and sliver of hope. So
Right.
I think on the defensive side of things, I actually think it's going to be a tougher test for the defense than it is the offense. I do want to touch on the offense really quick before we get our predictions and get out. But I think this is going to be an interesting challenge for the defense because Jayden Daniels has a very unique skill set.
Yeah.
It's a unique blend of speed and accuracy and just he's got great touch on the ball, and like I said, he'll thread it. He's not. We talk about him a lot about as a runner. You'd think he's like a running back, but this dude threw over 40 touchdowns. I think he actually threw 40 touchdowns last year. Won the Heisman. If he just ran the ball, he wouldn't have won the Heisman. So this guy has a great arm and can really sling it. So the Bucs are gonna have to be ready.
Yeah, and really quickly, just the Buccaneers defense and dispelling this myth about the Buccaneers track record against rookie quarterbacks. Listen, I know that I'm guilty as anyone saying that, the Bucs have struggled against rookie quarterbacks recently, but these numbers, courtesy of pewterreport.com, goes to show that it may not be as bad as one would think. I think the fashion in which they lost to CJ Stroud in 2023, that was like one of the top 3 highlights of his entire season. So maybe the burn just lasted a little bit longer there. But here we go. Todd Bowles' Buccaneers defense versus rookie quarterback since 2019. In 2019, they faced 4 rookie QBs and they went 2-2. The 2 that they beat were Kyler Murray with Arizona and Gardner Minshew with the Jaguars.
And Kyler Murray, whose play caller was Cliff Kingsbury, who is the Washington Commanders play caller.
And if you remember, in 2019, he was able to facilitate a couple of different plays with his legs. He was running all over the Bucs for a little while. I was at that game. I was at that game in person with my good buddy Blake Anthony. That was a good time. So the Bucs were 2-2 against rookie QBs in 2019. 2020, they were 1-0. 2021, they were 3-0 against rookie quarterbacks. In 2022, they were 0-3, the most infamous of those games being the Brock Purdy first career start, absolutely demolishing Tampa Bay. And then in 2023, they played 4 rookie quarterbacks. They had a 3-1 record. So CJ Stroud was the only rookie quarterback who made mincemeat of the Buccaneers last year. Now, again, I think the way that they lost that game and the style that they lost that game and then going 0-3 against rookie quarterbacks in 2022, I think the culmination of those events happening when they did might have led someone to believe that the Buccaneers have fared a little bit worse against rookie quarterbacks. But
the way Daniel Jones beat them and
right,
that's
right. I appreciate these stats because it puts things in perspective for you, and that's what we're here to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's I think that's where, and people remember way back. People remember Geno Smith.
Oh God, Mitch Trubisky.
Geno Smith's first start, week 1 against the Jets in New York. Levante David pushed him out of bounds, and they get the extra flag. The Jets kick the field goal. That was his, rookie thing. Mitch Trubisky looking, just absolutely unbelievable against the Buccaneers. We could go on and on, but I mean, yeah, they have fared better. I just think people just you don't remember the wins as much, right? You're gonna remember the losses because a lot of times the losses have come with these like iconic moments,
Right.
like CJ Stroud leads the team down the field with 30 seconds left. The Bucs lose a heartbreaker. The Bucs blow a lead and Daniel Jones leads them down the field. Matt Gay misses the field goal to end the game. Geno Smith gets pushed out of bounds and the Jets win the game. Mitch Trubisky throws all over him. So so it is interesting. Like you said, put that in perspective. They're actually not, as bad as it may seem, against rookie quarterbacks. But again, it's just that unknown. You don't know how this guy's going to translate to the NFL. Is he going to be a CJ Stroud where he picks it up really quick, or is it going to be, a Bryce Young situation where it's slower for him? And I'm not the biggest believer in Bryce Young, but I'm also not ready, to like throw in the towel because it takes time with some guys. Some guys just take time, and we'll see if Jayden Daniels is a guy. I mean, another one, Marcus Mariota, who obviously played Jameis Winston week 1.
Marcus Mariota, who was just ruled out a couple of minutes ago for Washington this weekend.
Okay, so you can't have those flashbacks.
For the people who were looking forward to that.
So yeah, I mean, that one, that's another one where people get in their minds of because you just don't remember the wins as much, right? You're not going to remember that. Oh yeah, the Bucs actually did beat Mac Jones, didn't they? And no, they did beat this guy. They did beat Zach Wilson, and they did this and did that. You're not going to remember that as much because it feels like the losses comes in like the most heartbreaking way ever, where like you can't forget it, right?
And I mean, and it's Mac Jones and Zach Wilson, to be fair,
No, I mean, yeah, to be fair, sure, but. Yeah, that definitely mattered, but they also lost to Daniel Jones, so Geno Smith, Mitch Trubisky. I mean, come on. So but yeah, it's definitely something. And again, like I said, to sort of put a bow on the defensive side of things, I want to head over to touch on a few things about the offense.
Really quickly, though, we do have some injury news. A quick update regarding the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Defensive tackle Calijah Kancey has been added to the injury report as questionable with a calf injury. He was limited in practice on Friday. It was a similar injury in training camp last year that forced him to miss 3 or 4 of the first 4 games. Holy hell, Evan. Don't love to hear that, especially with Logan Hall already being ruled out for this one. And, Calijah Kancey is going to have to be one of the main fixtures of this Bucs defensive line. So if we talk about potentially re-aggravating an injury here, don't love the sound of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that he's questionable and not out. I don't know if you can do doubtful anymore. I think they might have. I think they took that out of the thing. I'm not sure if you can put a designation as doubtful anymore. But yeah, I mean that's not great. We'll see if he can play. It may just be something where he just needs sort of some rest on it, and hopefully he'll be ready to go. Adam Davies does mention another guy. Justin Herbert was another rookie quarterback. Really one of the top highlights. Of who they've beaten. So
yeah, and what a game that was. We can't forget that 2020 season.
Game.
I think they were up 17-3 before you knew it. And
I think it was 21-7. I think.
Yeah.
He's Michael Davis, who now plays for the Commanders, picked 6 Tom Brady. So, but like I said, just to put a bow on it, be ready for Jayden Daniels. Expect the unexpected, basically.
Taking a look at this Buccaneers offense, Evan, wanted to gauge your thoughts on the run game. We've talked about Baker Mayfield and these pass catchers that he has in Tampa. Trey Palmer, I believe, was on the injury report this week. His status kind of in question for the game. But aside from that, you got a lot of promising talent in this wide receiver room. Jalen McMillan, we know how deep it is when you start with guys like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, expecting a big year for Godwin going back into the slot with this Liam Cohen offense. But we know about those guys. We know about Baker. We know about Mike Evans and how he's been a bully to Washington. But what about Rachaad White and Bucky Irving? Everybody wants to know about the run game. And maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm speaking for everybody and I'm speaking out of turn. But Evan, damn it, I want to know about the run game. What are your thoughts here?
So I'm not exactly sure how they're. I mean, Rachaad White's a running back one. That's been established. We know that the Bucs are big believers in Rachaad White. I think in both the run and pass game. Look, I mean, if you guys want to go back and watch Betting the Bucks, which is available on the YouTube channel right now, I have a couple of prop bets for Rachaad White. I won't say them here. You have to go and watch Betting the Bucks. But I have a couple of prop bets involving Rachaad White, so that I do like, because I am confident that I think they're gonna want him to be a focal point in the offense. And Bucky Irving, I think, is gonna get some playing time. I do. I don't. I think they're gonna want to keep, especially September. It's hot. They're gonna want to keep Rachaad White as fresh as possible. Because it's a long season. It's first of 17, so it is a long season. But this run game, I think, is something that the Buccaneers are going to want to establish. I just don't want them to force it, and I think you have to sort of go with the game flow. If the nightmare happens and Jayden Daniels really runs all over the Bucks and passes all over the Bucks, and the Bucks find themselves down 10-0 quickly, you might not be able to rely on the run game as much as you may want to. You may have to, if you want to use the running backs, you may have to use them in the passing game instead. So I don't want them to force it as much, just to be like, oh, we got to become a better running football team. That may naturally happen anyway. You can figure that out when you tie it up at 10, then you can go back to running the ball. And the improvement in the run game may happen naturally just by having an upgrade at center and Graham Barton, Cody Malk maybe taking another step at guard. I know Ben Bredesen's sort of a question mark there, but hopefully an improved interior will result in a naturally improved running game. And I think you're going to see, what Rachaad White is made out of at this point with an improved interior offensive line. So we'll see. I do think the Bucks are going to want to run the football, especially, like I said, on a hot day, they're going to want to wear that Washington defensive line. They're going to want to wear them down, I think. So in the trenches there, I think they're going to want to get them guys tired and get some long drives.
Yeah, and don't forget, along this Buccaneers defensive line, we talked about Logan Hall being the only player ruled out as of now. Earlier this week, Buccaneers defensive lineman Ernest Brown was placed on IR. So, to be honest with you, Evan, I know they signed a defensive lineman this week, but I would not be surprised to hear about maybe a guy like CJ Brewer or one of those other guys we saw in the preseason maybe getting a call from the Bucs this week to be ready to go for week 1.
Yeah, the Bucks haven't announced. I Bleav tomorrow is when they'll announce the practice squad elevations. Could especially with Kalijah Kancey, now being added to the injury report. Even if he does play, I think you'd want that just in case.
Yeah.
Just in case something happens, because you don't want to be too thin at that spot. So, yeah, I mean, look, it's just going to have to be a lot of Vita Vea on Sunday, a lot of Will Golston, Greg Gaines, in that interior. If Kancey can't go, and then like you said, CJ Brewer perhaps is the guy who you'll see maybe active on game day as a practice squad elevation. So have to keep an eye on that. Those are two names, definitely for sure though. Keep an eye, and also the defensive lineman they just signed. How much would he even play? Who knows? So yeah, it would definitely be interesting to see. Another thing, Trey Palmer was listed as questionable, but he practiced fully all week, so he's going to play. I think actually the one you're allowed to say doubtful. The one that was removed, Johnny Newton for the Commanders, is doubtful. The one that was removed was probable. You're not allowed to put probable now. So if the probable was a thing, Trey Palmer would probably be listed as probable, but they have to list it as questionable. So, yeah, I think, like I said, again, both sides of the ball, I think the trenches are going to matter. So as far as running the football, I think the Bucks are going to have to win at the line of scrimmage, and the strength of the Commanders unit right there is Jonathan Allen, De'Aaron Payne there in the middle. I think the Bucks are going to have to really push them. And if they can control the run game, they can control the rest of the game as well. And that's going to help out Baker Mayfield. That's going to help them, help him find Mike Evans, Chris Godwin against a suspect secondary. Those numbers I looked up about the Commanders, that was real. Their defense was very bad last year. And yes, they added some pieces, but it's not going to happen overnight. Just because Dan Quinn's there and the Cowboys had a top 5 defense in yards and points allowed per game, Washington was 32nd in both categories, and they were 32nd in most defensive categories. So I don't think the improvement on defense is going to happen overnight. I think the Bucks are going to have to take advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to get off of the field on third down. I think that's going to go a long way when you talk about this defensive line, keeping those guys fresh, keeping those big guys in the interior from getting burnt out too early in the game. Because maybe there are going to be some guys, pulling some extra reps that they didn't think they were going to have to pull this time a week ago when you had guys like Logan Hall and Ernest Brown readily available to go. Evan, Let's get into your thoughts on this game here and make our picks as we wrap this thing up. I'll tell you this. I think the Buccaneers have the tools to win this game by 10 points. I think they have the tools to go out there and find themselves pressuring the quarterback, forcing turnovers, making it a rough afternoon for a rookie quarterback who is making his first NFL start. I think they have the tools and the ability to do all of those things. I don't know if they have the tools and the ability to do it week 1. And I say that because, again, it takes a little bit of time, right? I don't think there's any part of this Bucs team that is going to be where we want it to be in week 1. I don't think there's any part of the Commanders that's going to be where they want it to be week 1. So with that being said, as much as I Bleav that if everything goes right, the Buccaneers can topple Jayden Daniels and they can beat the hell out of these guys, I think that can happen. I just think there's a couple of things that are going to prevent them from doing it, whether it is costly penalties, misorganization, miscommunication. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be some sort of week 1 problem that prevents them from playing where we want them to play. And that's fine. Like, that happens week 1. It happens all the way up until week 6 or 7 for a lot of the better teams in the NFL. So with that being said, I do think it is a closer game. I don't think it's as high scoring. And I will give the same score prediction I gave here, the same score prediction that I gave the other night on Ref the District. I got the Bucs winning this one by a field goal, 24-21. I think the Buccaneers are able to kind of hang on to this one. And then somewhere around the third quarter is when things get dicey, right? When it's a 21-21 ball game and you got to do some drastic things down the stretch. But I got the Bucs winning this one. I don't see a lot of reasons why they shouldn't.
They're a better team, right? And we've looked at this, and especially with Detroit next week, and a lot of the teams that they're going to be playing, right? Philly, San Francisco, Kansas City, Baltimore, Dallas. This is the type of games you got to win. You got to be able to win these games. Last year, like they had to beat the Panthers, in those games. That win the games you're supposed to win, basically, right? That's what we said a lot of times when Tom Brady was here, right? Win the games. You're better than most of these teams. You got to win most of these games, especially now. Like, you may not be the most talented team in the NFL like you were maybe in 2021. But you still have to win these games, right? And I think it even puts more emphasis on winning the games you're supposed to win when you're not as the most talented team in the league. So they can't afford to lose this game, and it's going to be the home opener. I don't think they will lose this game. I think they will win. I think it'll be close. I think there's going to be, like I said, Jayden Daniels, I think, is going to make some plays where it's frustrating. But it's like, oh, they almost had him there, or and then it keeps the door open for Washington to win the game or whatever, and it doesn't work, or whatever it may be. I look at Washington, and again, just like what Anthony said, I look at those two weaknesses that he thought, being the offensive line and the secondary. And I just think and especially with the wide receiver 2 aspect of things, I think this week 1 matchup really plays into Tampa Bay's favor. And I think they are going to take it. I also have it by a field goal. I have it a bit more high scoring than you do. I have 26-23 Tampa Bay on top.
I like a big day for the wide receivers. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. I mean, Mike Evans statistically has always been a bully to Washington, but statistically always kind of been a monster in week 1 for Tampa Bay as well, at least finding the end zone.
Yeah, two straight seasons that two straight season openers he's found the end zone. So looking to make it looking to make another one. And you take out 2021, he didn't find the end zone, but 2020 he did. So
I love it. Very excited to watch the Buccaneers take on the Commanders this Sunday to kick off the regular season. Bucs going to be wearing their white on white jersey, white pants, in front of their home fans at Raymond James Stadium. It has been a long 8 months, my friends, but we're going to do it, and we're going to do it for real this time. The Bucs and the Commanders kick off the regular season this Sunday. Should be a great game. But that's just about going to do it for today's episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out with us live over on YouTube. Our good buddy Mikey Kelly says 35-14 Bucs. We appreciate you hanging out, Mikey. Willie Beeman, the moderator, is always holding it down. Richard T. from the West Coast. Holding it down in the chat. Eddie Nash, the GOAT, Leadus Productions. If you guys are not familiar with any of these Bucs highlight reel compilations on YouTube, Leadus Productions is probably the best. I think he's been doing it for, I don't know if he's been doing it the longest, but he's been doing it the best consistently for as long as I can remember. I mean, he's so damn good that Mike Evans officially acknowledges him and reposts his stuff every time he makes a Mike Evans video. So some very prestigious company there, and acknowledgement for Leadus. We appreciate you hanging out with us. Adam Davies from Bucs UK, Bat W, Bradley Lipke, Space Windu, Evan Bleav, Christopher Cole, anybody else that I may have missed. We really appreciate you guys once again.
And also, you guys can check us out. You'll hear from us again on Sunday. This is the game preview, but we are back to it. So you'll hear from us win, lose, or draw after the game on Sunday. So be right here on Cannon Fire Podcast YouTube channel. Let us know what you think. Let us know how much the Buccaneers, were great and they blew out the Commanders, or let us know how much the Bucs suck and you can't believe they lost to another rookie quarterback. So either way, we will be here to break it all down.
Phones will be on for the first time this season. Looking forward to that very much. One last bold prediction here from Richard T. from the
West
Coast.
It's a bold prediction. It's all the way from the West Coast.
All the way from the West Coast here. This bold prediction took 3 hours to get here. Zion McCollum with 2 interceptions. That would be a big time first impression for cornerback 2 Zion McCollum. Should be an interesting game. Hopefully a couple of turnovers for the boys in red and pewter, or I guess white on white, but you know what I meant. Follow the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show. And, of course, Tampa Bay Buccaneer news as it happens. Speaking of Bucs news as it happens, you can follow my co-host Evan on Instagram at Bucs_daily. You can also find him on Twitter at EvanNFL. And check out his written work at BucsNation.com. You got anything this week?
So I did put out the X Factor for the Buccaneers. You can go over, not going to reveal who it is, but there's an X Factor player that I think is the key to all of this for the Buccaneers to get a victory on Sunday. So you can head over to BucsNation.com and check that article out. And then we'll have all our game day coverage. And then after the game, we'll have all of our post-game coverage. So stay tuned there.
Last but not least, you can find myself on Instagram and Twitter at Retticus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. We will talk to you Sunday after the game. Win, lose, or draw. We'll be live right here, youtube.com/Cannon Fire Podcast. Phones will be on. We look forward to hearing from you. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, signing off for my co-host, Evan Wanish. We will talk to you Sunday after the game. Until then, and as always, thank you for listening, and go Bucs.